if you look at their signature issues, the border, defund the police, open borders, de facto amnesty, what we saw in Afghanistan, all of the economy, the 9% hyperinflation, and then of course the DEI stuff gets people really angry. There's not one issue that they can say we're 55-45 on. And then you say, well, maybe they've got a charismatic Obama that can, persuade Americans to adopt things they otherwise are afraid of or don't like. There's none. All you have is Hakeem Jeffries with a baseball bat, or Schumer screaming and yelling each week. But I don't think they can go to the middle, because no one, I think their problem is they know they have to do that in the general election, but they know that anybody who said that would never be nominated.
The Democrats have no center, no leader, and no plan, just noise. Victor Davis Hanson exposes the collapse. Open borders, defund the police, inflation, foreign policy blunders, and identity politics that alienate everyone but the Twitter class. Meanwhile, Trump isn't isolationist or interventionist. He's transactional. Kill Baghdadi. Avoid forever wars. Deter with force, not fantasy. He's not pretending to be a savior. He's aiming to stop the bleeding. This isn't 2008. The left lost its hawks, lost its pragmatists, and now it's losing the country.
I mean, the last day that Barack Obama was in office, on January 19th of 2017, his Parthian shot to us was he unilaterally, without congressional authority or consultation, sent B-2s, the very same bombers that Trump sent. He sent them all the way to Libya to bomb Libya. And he had been bombing on Libya since 2011. And it didn't result in anything but chaos and destruction and killing. And I had gone to that country in 2007. And whatever we said about this monstrous Gaddafi, his children were starting to take over, and he was anti-Islamic at that point. He wasn't good, he wasn't bad, but it was better than the alternative we have now. No one said a word on the Democrat. Tim Kaine was the head of the Democratic Party, the DNC, I think in 2015. And he didn't say, he had never said a word about any of this. And, you make a good point about the MAGA. They agree, they have good points, but the base that is skeptical, but they agree with 85% of the Trump agenda. And they can't go anywhere because the alternative is democratic insanity. And so that's what Trump was, and you're absolutely right. He never ran on anything other than in a cost-to-benefit analysis. I'm going to find a way to maintain, preserve, and enhance deterrence for the U.S. so we don't have to get in forever wars. And sometimes that means Soleimani, that means Baghdadi, that means ISIS, that means taking out the Wagner group. But these are self-limiting situations that on a cost-to-benefit analysis help our strategic stability and safety. That's all he was. He never said anything else. He was not an isolationist, and he wasn't an interventionist. And I think people forget that about him. Obama used predator drone assassinations constantly, and he even joked about it, the White House correspondence. He said, if anybody wants to date my daughters, be careful, it's called Predator. It was kind of a sick joke. And then, of course, we had John Brennan, who lied under oath. And then when he was asked, are you killing collaterally? Well, no, we haven't killed. And then he had to retract that and apologize for perjuring himself. And then we get into Joe Biden. I mean, there were 300 attacks essentially all over the Middle East that he didn't respond to. But finally, he did a little bit, 4 or 5 times. But he did. No one on the left said you can't hit back, or you can't preempt unless you have congressional authority. So, and the same thing with the Houthis, both Biden and Trump, but Biden anemically responded or preempted and attacked the Houthis. So it's kind of, I mean, there used to be people within the Democratic Party that were to the right of Donald Trump, believe it or not. You can see those old clips of Hillary Clinton asked when she was contemplating a run for the presidency, what would you do about Iran and the nuclear? She said, it sounds horrible, but I would obliterate it if they were getting a bomb. And I'm not condoning what she said, but that was a strong wing of the Democratic Party. And that is completely vanished now. And partly because there's kind of a nihilism, there is a nihilism now in the Democratic Party. Whatever Donald Trump says or does, it has to be evil and stopped. at all cost. And the result of that extremism is they become characters of themselves. They really have. Had he had this attitude before he reached out to Putin, he would have had a lot more trouble with the MAGA base. But now he can say to them, I took a lot of flack trying to be fair to Putin. I bent over backwards, and we have no choice unless you want me to do something like Afghanistan and just give up on Ukraine. And you know what will happen. It'll be a humiliation for our entire party if they overrun Kiev. And they can if we stop supporting. So he's gone more than halfway, and that's important for his base. I think the problem, what he didn't realize, is that Putin understands that he already had the Crimea, he already had the Donbass, and de facto he knew that Ukraine was not going to be in NATO. And then he's now 50 or 60 miles in many places beyond the Donbass or Crimea. But he's lost 1 million dead, wounded, and missing. And he's got to tell the military and the apparat and the oligarchic class back there, I lost 1 million casualties, and it was worth it because, and they're going to say, because what, Vladimir? We already knew we had Crimea. We were never going to give it back. We were never going to give Donbass back. We knew they weren't going to get in it. What can you show us was worth 1 million casualties? And so he thinks he's got to keep going westward, or he thinks he has to somehow terrorize Ukraine into submission, or he thinks the United States is going to bail on Ukraine. And that's not going to happen. And I think so what's either going to happen is that somebody's going to force him to quit on the Russian side, or he's going to see that he's getting very diminishing returns as the casualties mount. I don't think Russia ever imagined they would lose that many people and get so little in return from what they started with. I think he's just going to have to say, the only way we're going to have peace is I have to have some leverage. I have no leverage. If we just pull out, he will take Ukraine, and whether you like it or not, you will be blamed for it. And that will be the big campaign issue in 2028. Who lost Ukraine? Because it'll make the pullout from Afghanistan look like nothing. So we're going to continue our help with Ukraine. We've closed our own border. I've done all this, but I don't have any choice. I got to get the tools to deal with Putin, and he will not deal unless he knows that he can't win. And so that's all he can do. And I think if you look at the polls, most of the people don't like, when you phrase the question, are you going to increase aid, or are you going to get involved, they say no. But if you just keep the aid going and hope that he will finally see that he can't get much more vis-a-vis the cost, then I think that's the only thing that we can do. Yeah, the big thing is the secondary. We've never done that, really. That's a devastating, that's almost like an act of war. So that means you tell India, for example, if you buy any more Russian oil, you're done with us. You tell China, if you buy, it's against the law in the United States to have when Cesar Chavez had a secondary boycott of California grapes, he boycotted Safeway just because they had grapes on the shelf, not that they were endorsing anything. And it was pretty traumatic. And it didn't really work. It got him a lot of bad publicity, but that's the next step. And I don't know if Trump wants to take that, because unlike all of the hysteria about a trade war, if you have a secondary boycott, that's a pretty radical step. And it's radical in the sense it would probably be much more effective than what we're doing now. But the cost in economic disruption and problems with people, our allies and neutrals, would increase as well. It's very funny because if you look at the Wall Street Journal op-ed page, they warned us that tariffs would cause a trade war and hyperinflation. It didn't happen. But at the same time, they were urging a secondary boycott of anybody who bought oil from Ukraine. That is a tax. That is going to be that would be 10 times worse than any tariff if we did that. It would be so disruptive because these are really big countries like China and India. And if you just simply cut off all aid with China, or all trade with China, all trade with India, it would be a disaster for the world economy, but that would spike inflation. But I don't understand why people who have argued, let's be moderate about tariffs, then suddenly go whole hog on something we've never even done before. We've had tariffs before, but we've never secondary boycotted huge countries like they're talking about. So I think it's a bad thing. A lot of it, I think, of the independence, it Donald Trump's trademark is he's decisive, he's transparent, and he doesn't give a blank what people think. And the Epstein thing hurt him. Not, I think everybody said it was going to hurt him with the base. It hurt him more, I think, with independents, because they said, well, he's just another politician. They said one thing and then they did the other. And the best thing that he could do is just say, we've had just say we've had mixed signals. We're just anything that comes across my desk that's about Epstein and is legal, I'm going to let it go. And you, the people, have to use your own intelligence to sort out who was an innocent bystander, who was collateral versus who was culpable. And I trust your judgment, and that's what I'm going to do. And because I think that's hurt him with a lot of people.
If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest content.